variation is when we find our constant, and that will equal when we multiply our x times by our y. So k is still going to be our constant. So suppose y varies inversely with x. I'm going to write the function rule for the following situation. So we're dealing with the inverse. So my constant is going to be 6 times 2. So my constant is 12. So my equation is going to be that my 12 equals x times y. If you want to look at inverse variation a little bit differently, if we want y by itself, if we divided both sides by by x, we could say that y equals k divided by x, which we won't look at it that much. So this one we could have also said that, well, y equals 12 divided by x. Either way works, that would be our inverse variation. So if we have that y equals 1/10 and x is 20, means I'm going to do 20 times by 1/10. So that means my constant is 2. So that means my constant equals my x times my y. Or we can look at this as y equals 2 divided by x. So each pair of points is on the graph of an inverse variation. So we want to find the missing value. So here's my x, here's my y. So my constant is my x times by my y. So that means the constant that I have is 14.4. And again, it's for both of these, so it's my constant for over here. So in order to find my missing y value, I know my constant equals x times y. My constant is 14.4. My x is 1.2. I'm trying to find my y value, which is actually technically a g. So if I divide both sides by 1.2, g will equal 12. So this is like our step 1, this is our step 2. So step 1, to find my constant, I take my x and multiply it by my y. So my constant is 650. So in step 2, I'm trying to find my x value, which is t. So I have my constant will equal my x times my y. My constant is 650. My x value is I don't know, which is my t, and my y value is a 5. So divide both sides by 5. So that means t equals 130. So for these next two, we want to determine whether something is a direct variation or if it's an inverse variation. So I first want to look at, I'm just going to do direct first because that's the first one it gives me. So I'm going to look at direct. Remember, direct is when you take y equals your constant times by your x. So that means I'm taking my y value and I'm dividing it by x. So if I do 12 divided by 3, I get 4. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So that means direct does not work because those are not constant. So now if I take a look at my inverse, remember inverse is your constant equals your x times y. So if I take 3 times 12, I end up with 36. 6 times 6 is 36. 9 times 4 is 36. And 12 times 3 is also 36. So since these are all constants, this is an inverse variation, which means my equation would be that my constant, is 36 times by x times y, remember, or you could say y equals 36 over x. So let's look at the second one. Again, I'm just going to start with direct because that's the first one it says. So if I look at direct, again, that's y equals my constant times by my x, which means I take my y value and I divide it by x. So my y is 12 divided by 3, I get 4. 20 divided by 5, 4. 32 divided by 8 is 4. 40 divided by 10 is 4. So these are all constant. So that means that this is a direct variation. So my equation is y equals 4 times x. Suppose 4 people can paint a house if they work 3 days each. How long would it take a crew of 5 people to paint the house? So if I take a look at this and I say there's 4 people, I'm going to label that my x, and then they can work if they work 3 days a week. So that's my y. I want to know how long it would take for 5 people. So there's my other x, and I don't know how long. So if I'm taking a look, if I have 4 people that work 3 days each, and I have 5 people, I don't know how many days they'll have to work. So in this situation, this is an inverse variation. So my constant is going to be my x times by my y. So my constant is 12. So to find my missing, if I know I'm still dealing with an inverse, my constant is 12, my x is 5, and I don't know my y. Y is 2.4 days. So each person would have to work 2.4 days, which would make sense. If you're adding another person, your time should have to go down. Let's take a look here. Suppose a camper took 2 hours to ride around a lake at 15 miles per hour. By the end of the summer, they can make the trip in 1.5 hours. What's the new rate? So they're riding 2 hours and going 15 miles per hour. They are now riding for an hour and a half. You want to know how fast they're now going. So if I take this and say my constant is going to equal my x times by my y, my constant is 30. So from here, if I know my constant is 30, and do my x times by my y, it's now taking 120 miles per hour. So they've increased their time, which means they got to run the lake faster. Explain whether the following situations are a direct variation or an inverse variation. So you buy broccoli for $1.50 per pound. So in this case, if I'm trying to figure out how much something is going to cost, I'm going to take how much it costs and multiply it by how many pounds I buy. So this is set up as a direct variation. If I have a group of friends and we're sharing an 18-piece bucket of chicken, so my constant is 18. If I'm trying to share 18 pieces, wouldn't I have to divide by how many people there are? So this would be an inverse variation, because my constant is being divided by how many people I'm sharing it with to know how many each person gets.